I'd like to let everyone know that we'll be starting in approximately in 1 minute as more attendees join in. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 2017 Trends Seminar. Today we will discuss contact center omnichannel and the latest self-service technologies. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to our webinar. Today's presenters are myself, Pam Campbell. I am the Director of Business Development here at NewEcho. From Genesis, we have Tommy Minta, Director of Digital Solutions Lead for Genesis. And from NewEcho, we have Dominic, our Chief Technology Officer at NewEcho. Today, we're going to talk about who is NewEcho, what we do, what's happening in the omnichannel space in 2017. We're going to talk about chatbots as your omnichannel strategy. And at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So who is NewEcho? So NewEcho is a privately held company. We were established in 2002. We have over 45 employees with over 30 highly skilled and experienced Genesis contact center agents. You may have known us in the past as our technology as Locust Speech, and you may have used our technology in the past. Our Locust Speech practice was sold to Nuance, and today we work with clients such as National Bank, Hydro-Quebec, CN, Desjardins, with Bell Canada for the CIBC project in the contact center space. We are growing our practice. We are currently in Quebec, and we're growing our practice into Canada and across the United States of America. We're a fast-paced growing organization. We have 4 practices. We have our consulting practice, our consulting and development practice, our testing practice, our speech applications and tuning practice, and our custom development practice. Within these practices, we offer services from starting with business applications, right down to testing, as well as with speech and grammar optimization, natural language. We perform GUI and VUI design, natural speech language, and IVR optimization. I now will turn the slides over to Tommy. Tommy, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Great. Thank you so much, Pam. So my name is Tommy Minta, and as Pam said, I lead our digital solution practice for Genesis in North America. So kind of looking after really that omni-channel vision, working with some of the largest brands across North America to connect in all of those digital channels and really establish that customer experience that all customers are really looking for. So to start us off, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back and kind of recognize that when we think about this connected world that we live in today, that we as consumers, we really have more ways of communicating than ever before. And honestly, we can, as consumers, we can put a pretty heavy strain on organizations in terms of our expectations and what we expect when it comes to reaching out to an organization. We expect quick responses across any channel. We expect all of our communication to be connected and seamless. So we as consumers have these types of expectations. So really it comes down to, as an organization, how do you address that demand from the consumers that you have? And I think there was a recent event, a Gartner event, where the CEO of Gartner actually put it really well with a quote that sort of started to go viral. You may have heard this quote, that if you think you're not a digital business today, well, you will soon be out of business. That's what customers are demanding today. And he even went a little bit further to talk about how being a digital brand is really becoming that type of differentiator and really gives that competitive advantage. You think about, as much as we rely on reviews and the experience of others when we're choosing what brands we're going to spend our money with, how many of us are looking up Amazon reviews and Yelp reviews and TripAdvisor reviews all the time? It's just becoming critical to get those customer experiences right. And so if we think about what's happened over the past few decades, we've moved beyond just basic customer service, and now we've even moved beyond what was looked at as the customer experience era, with integrating several of those channels together. But now more than ever, it's really about the entire relationship that you build with your customers. So we've moved into a time that's not just about the individual interactions, and it's more than just the actual journeys that customers are going on, but it's about that entire customer life cycle and managing that whole relationship. So that's what we're excited to talk to you for a little while today about. What does it mean to build those types of relationships, and how do you do that? It's of course a topic that everybody's talking about today, but how do you go about doing that? So if we think about some of the shifts that have been occurring, these general trends on this slide probably aren't going to surprise you, that the difference between low effort and high effort, but it is pretty staggering to see the extreme of some of these numbers, that really only 4% of customers have reported that if they have a high effort that they're going to repurchase or increase their spend with a company. And it really is a substantial number that you can deliver that type of low effort experience for your customers, that what that can mean in terms of customer retention and really growth, increasing that wallet share, is really very substantial. But then it's also not just about our own personal buying habits, what we say that we're going to do ourselves, but we also know it really comes down to spreading the word to others. When we have a great experience, it's not that often that we might go out and tell the world about it. But as soon as we have that poor experience, as soon as we have a frustrating time dealing with an organization, it's an instant jump to to spread the word about that poor experience that we had. So we know that this is what the average consumer is essentially how they're behaving, and so it becomes that kind of goal of an omni-channel vision, that true omni-channel that you're wanting to achieve, making all of the interaction channels really play nicely together. And so omni-channel it's the big buzzword that's out there today, but doesn't everyone offer omni-channel? You hear it, and we at Genesis, partnering with New Echo, we're going to talk about it. A lot of other organizations are talking about it. But to start off, let's start with a little bit of a definition of what do we say omni-channel really means, and how can we define it? So we think of it as a number of these items that you're going to see up here on the screen. And one of the key messages that we like to deliver is that when you think about omni-channel, when you think about having that centralized, kind of single channel almost, we look at it really in that first icon as a single routing engine for all channels. So as opposed to having siloed channels, it's really about being able to establish a business rule that says no matter what channel, no matter what way that a customer is reaching out to me, I'm going to define a rule and say that you're going to have a consistent experience no matter how you reach out to me as a company. And similarly for agents, to be able to have the power right within, one single simple tool where they can manage, any interaction type from one single desktop, and potentially even pivot between those channels. If they're working on one channel and then recognize, hey, this is going to be much easier to just pick up the phone and call that customer, that agents can pivot between those channels. And then that really starts to establish this idea of a fully connected customer journey that really ideally can be orchestrated, that there's tools available where you can personalize and predict what that customer is going to need, and you have that visibility into what that customer has been doing across channels, and that you can easily jump in and define those rules and say, this is how I want my customer's experience to be. And at the end of the day, it comes down to not just those folks that are the frontline employees that are interacting with your customers, but when back office practices have to come into play, when there's processes where things need to be passed off to an expert or to a technician or things like that, that this entire idea of the customer experience really transcends across the entire organization. So these are some of the ideas that we think about that when we say that omnichannel vision is what we're looking to help you deliver. These are some of the key points that we want you to keep in mind. So as we think about omnichannels, we think about helping you enable that vision, for your organization. We want to take a little bit of an initial poll and see and ask, where are you? Where is your organization currently? How do you see yourself when it comes to having that type of omnichannel visibility for your customers? So we've got a little poll that should be popping up here on screen, and if you can go ahead and take a minute to read through the choices that are there, and choose one of those choices that best fits. Whether your channels are currently in silos and you don't yet have the ability to see the customer history, maybe you have some visibility across some of the channels. Maybe you have visibility more across the channels, but then thinking about the final step of having that customer journey mapping, do you have that full visibility of your customer journeys across channels? So we'll give you just another minute to record your response there, and then we'll talk about those results as they come in. I think we've gotten a good number of you that have voted. I'll give you maybe another 15 seconds to go ahead and record your response if you haven't had a chance to do that yet. Okay, all right, so I think we've gotten a good number of responses, so we'll go ahead and finish up that poll, and of course we'll share these results with you in our follow-ups. We'll go ahead and close that poll, and I think we can share these results now here on the screen. So we do have a pretty good variety here of the visibility that you have with customers across channels, and so I think it looks like the bulk, about 76%, combining those first two items, is that either there's not really any visibility yet today or limited visibility across channels. And definitely exciting that a few of you out there already have that full visibility into those client journeys. So we'll we definitely love to hear from you. Certainly share some of your best practices. Feel free to share any information in the question window, or ask any questions that you may have. But so this is great to see that I think we all know that for the most part there's certainly room for improvement in that achieving that omni-channel vision. So so let's go ahead and move along. I'm going to hide those results. Like I said, we'll be sharing those with you with the rest of this session. Let's get back up here. Okay, so let me just say, as we've switched around for the poll, can I ask Pam to verify just that we're back up seeing the slides? We'll just make sure that GoToWebinar is behaving correctly. We're looking good? from your side? Okay, Stephanie, it looks like she's confirmed that we're back in action. Okay, great. So yeah, so it does come down to trying to achieve that omni-channel vision, but really the big question is how do you do that? How do you achieve that? And of course, it is kind of a lofty goal if you think about, okay, we want to just lump everything together and make everything working at once. But we at Genesis, we had a recent collaboration session between a couple dozen enterprises across North America, and then brought in Frost & Sullivan, as an industry expert and analyst to talk about this. And this is, of course, a very general statement here, very general rule. But one approach that many organizations agreed that would be beneficial to them is to use the simple 80-20 rule and say, okay, where are kind of 80% of our interactions taking place, or where are we struggling the most, and take those top maybe 2 channels, maybe 3 channels, and come up with ways of just integrating those 2 channels together. Sometimes it could just be very simple use cases, identifying when do customers move from one channel to the next when interacting with you. Is it when they're on the website, maybe trying to log in to their account and they fail to log in, then they reach out, they pick up the phone and call in, to talk with somebody about that problem? Could we make that one use case just a little bit more seamless? If that's one of the large topics that your contact center agents spend time dealing with, try to identify that low-hanging fruit of a couple channels, and then later phase it in a little bit further. So again, may seem relatively simple, but it does just take that time to step back and understand what are the low-hanging fruit again that you can go after, and really put yourself in the shoes of your customer, and kind of map out. We do certain things like that, like mapping out the customer journey, and start to understand what are those customers moving through, what channels are they moving across, what problems, what roadblocks are they running into. So if we want to think about, once you start to connect those channels together, we can break things down into, how do we create those great relationships? And we have 3 main points for you today, three keys that we want you to take away in understanding how do you create those great lasting relationships with your customers, and how do you actually make that happen? So we'll start with the first key here. And you may be a little surprised, the first key is not really going to have much to do with the customer directly. So the first key here is to make your employees the champions of great customer relationships. So you think maybe we'd start with talking about the customer and what they're doing, but I want to kind of change things up a little bit and first talk about your employees, whether it's your contact center agents, or even the back office agents, or your supervisors and your team leads. How are they enabled to make it a great customer experience for those that are interacting with you? So we'll take a look here at a agent desktop. This is the Genesis agent desktop, and what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen is this customer journey. So once you kind of put those pieces together, what do you do with it? You need to make sure that your agents have the right information to see and act upon what that customer journey looks like. So if I kind of just zoom in a little bit, we may be able to see things like that the customer has been on the website, they've been researching certain products, and maybe they switched over into the mobile app, maybe scheduled an appointment at a local branch or retail store. So like I said, we're kind of taking the flip side a little bit here to start, and really think about once you start designing these types of journeys, how are you going to use them? How are you going to empower your agents or your employees to make best use out of that information? And so this type of visibility into that customer journey, really we need to do something with it. We need to understand what that customer is doing. And so putting that in front of the agent can allow that agent to understand, hey, as soon as I pick up the phone, this is where this customer is in their journey. This is going to be the best way to help them and assist them with their particular issue. And then similarly, we think about, again, we've got the idea of a customer journey, but from a management perspective, what are we going to do with those journeys? How do we understand potentially here for an onboarding type of journey. How long is that taking? How long are our customers taking to onboard onto our organization? And where are customers falling out of that process? Where are they, falling out of the buying process? What activities are being successfully completed and what are not? So by enabling your agents and your organization to see that information, really to act, that's where it becomes powerful, and we can start to see a journey funnel here. We can start to drill down and say, okay, out of these journeys that customers went through a research stage, only some of them actually converted. Some of them got stuck. Some of them completely abandoned at that point. Start to understand, like I said, where are customers falling out of the buying process, and where are they successful in eventually reaching a purchase or a connection with your organization. So like I said, that's kind of the flip side of it. So we definitely need to be able to see and act upon this data once we kind of put it into play. So the second key that we'll talk briefly about is about creating those personal relationships. So we will now kind of flip back and think about the customer that is reaching out and talking to us over all of those different connected devices. So, but how do you think about making their experience that great relationship? And a lot of it really does come down to to making it a personal experience. I'm sure we can all think about it a time, even if something very, very small, that when we pick up the phone and called in, or even if we stopped into a store or started to chat with a company on their website, if they just did one or two little things to make our experience that much more personal, it can really go a long way in influencing how we feel about that brand, and then further how long we remain connected with that brand, who we share that brand experience with. And so if we think about all of that data that could be coming in, the concept of big data, IoT or Internet of Things, all of this data is coming in, and it really affords us with a great opportunity to personalize the experiences that we give to customers. It really allows you to make their experiences unique to them. So as an example of that, let's think about a customer that might be on your website and might be looking to reach out and contact you. So you may offer them, here's all the different channels, here's all the different ways that you can reach out to us and contact us. So basic contact us type of screen. But if we know a little bit about who this customer is, if we know that maybe they've logged into the website or they've been here before, we know a little bit about who they are, we can start to personalize their experience. So if we know that, hey, this is a member of our company, and they're in an older generation, and they much prefer to just reach out and call us, then let's only present the contact option to them, or make it more prominent, make it the priority for them to reach out and call you. Or on the flip side, if this is a digital native, somebody that's that's young and that really just wants to use digital channels to reach out and talk to you, then maybe just hide that call-in option and just present them with the channels that either that or that you think might fit best for that person. And it might not just be about who that person is, but it might be about taking a little bit of context of who this customer, what this customer has been doing. And so if we know that, for example, let's say this customer is just looking at their bill, maybe at their cell phone bill, and then if they have questions about that detailed 25-page bill, talking to somebody over the phone, that might not be the best channel for them at this particular time, because you think about describing, well, I'm on this page of the bill and I'm looking here, looking there, trying to describe over the phone what you're looking at with this complicated bill. It might be easier to just offer them a co-browse session where the agent can be looking at the bill together with them. Could be over a chat or could be over the phone as well, but keeping that in mind that, hey, actually co-browsing might be beneficial to this customer because of what they're trying to accomplish, and that might be the best way to communicate with them. And so, again, it comes down to understanding where that customer is on their journey and really trying to personalize the methods that are offered to them, or the ways that they can most quickly and efficiently get their problem addressed. So another kind of trend that we're starting to see, and this is some really kind of fascinating technology that is really kind of starting to explode today, is the concept of offering self-service capabilities exactly when they need it. Self-service is starting to come back into a more popular type of trend, but of course it's a little different than the self-service back 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so we think about things like micro apps. So we call them micro applications. So this could be a customer chatting with an agent, and the agent would have the ability to push this little micro application to them to enable that type of self-service. Say, yep, here's exactly the form that you were looking for. Here's the set of steps, this business process, this predefined set of steps that we can offer to you. Saves time for the customer, or because they can just walk through this wizard. Saves time for the agent as well, as they're not having to type out a whole bunch of information. They're not having to describe a whole bunch of complicated processes to the customer. So as you see, I'll build that out one more time, that as you could be chatting with the customer, this little micro application can appear to the customer. And these micro applications could be made available on the web and on mobile, and moving those across to different devices and really giving the customer that connected seamless journey that they're looking for across channels. And the final key that we do want to touch on here today is when it comes to this idea of omnichannel, connecting everything together. Of course, we know that the world is changing, and it's important to be flexible and to be agile, to be ready when that type of innovation starts to present itself with connected devices and the Internet of Things. And what we're definitely seeing today is that the exciting part is the technology is here. All of these connected devices, all of this information, almost information overload. The technology and the capabilities are here today. But the issue that when we talk with a lot of organizations, really one of the biggest roadblocks to really kind of enabling that omni-channel type of vision is, taking a quick look to understand, are your business processes really ready for this type of omni-channel experience? So a lot of times when we think about, the silos, we're able to break down a lot of the silos between technology. We can connect that customer journey, from the web to mobile over into voice. But within your organization, a good question to kind of do a little self-reflection on is, where are there silos between departments? Where are there silos between teams? Where are our internal silos within our own business processes that may be preventing us from really enabling that customer journey, across channels. So again, that the silos that are in place now are not just about the technology. The silos really that are most common as a roadblock today would be within your company, and taking a look at how can we make ourselves easier to do business with, whether it's thinking about the retail physical branches versus the online e-store and places like that, or even just cross departments from the HR department over into customer support and things like that. So really taking a look at how can we start to break down some of those silos. And again, of course, with all of the infrastructure that you have in place, of course it's not easy to just say, yep, we're going to break down all the silos immediately and we're going to all be one connected family. The legacy infrastructure that's in place, both in terms of people and process, it doesn't always make that easy. But again, it's about identifying where are some of those quick wins, where are some of those ways that we can start to say, hey, we can connect these two pieces together and start to realize that omni-channel vision for our customers. So when we think about those connected devices and what's coming, self-service has evolved from, back in the day, that frustrating IVR, the speech recognition that never really, seemed to work correctly. That was kind of the idea of previous self-service. But now it is about things like chatbots and virtual assistants that, can provide that type of advanced self-service. Artificial intelligence really is making a lot of headway. In 2016, it was kind of one of the big topics, and really, I think over the next couple of years, it's really we're gonna start to be seeing it even more prevalent in the world today. But what's really important as you're starting to think about, these next generation type of approaches that you want to, enable with this new technology, what's really important here on the bottom of the slide is to make sure that when you're thinking about things like chatbots, when you're thinking about these new technologies, make sure that you fold that into your entire omni-channel vision. Make sure that you're not just grabbing a technology because it's out there, because it has a lot of cool pizzazz to it, but it's really actually going to create just yet another technology silo. So when when a customer of yours is interacting with one of these new types of technology, what happens when they want to move over to another channel? So Dominic is going to talk a little bit more about that, about chatbots, and how your strategy, how you want to kind of keep all of those factors in mind. So more to come in just a couple minutes from Dominic. So I will kind of wrap up this portion here, with just kind of summarizing those three keys that we talked about. It's about making sure that at the end of the day, that your employees, the ones that are actually interacting with your customers, that they are the ones that are enabled to be a champion, to say, I see that you were doing this on, that you just chatted with us, and I'm here to help your situation and, resolve your issues. So really, thinking about what do they need to have to be successful? How do they need to be enabled to create those great customer relationships? And then thinking about how can you personalize the relationships with your customers? How can you make their experience, just identifying one or two simple things that can make their experience very, very personal, because that's when we have that type of connection with the brand, and that's when we we'll maintain that lasting relationship. And be ready for that type of innovation, be ready for the changes that are coming, but of course, approach it with a careful strategy, making sure that you're viewing all of the entire omni-channel strategy, everything that your customer is doing, both from your existing technology that you have today into these new types of technologies. So certainly something that is very important to keep track of. So like I said, we've got much more to come from Dominic on chatbots, and so I'm going to hand the presentation over to him, and we're going to start with one more quick poll to get a little bit of your insight when it comes to chatbots and virtual assistants. So Dominic, over to you.
Thank you, Tommy. And as Pam said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm the CTO of New Echo. I've been in the speech and IVR industry for about 20 years now, and in the contact center industry for maybe 10 years. So today I will talk to you about one of the big hype in 2016, which was chatbots, and I will try to show you how this could benefit your organization and how you can create an interesting experience for your customers. But we'll first start with a poll here, a quick poll, to know your familiarity and if you see a future for chatbots or virtual assistants in your organization. So the poll is open, and you can start putting your answers right now. I'll just wait a few seconds, as about 50% of you have answered. Okay, so I think we can close the poll and see the results. Not surprisingly, about almost 50% of you are not really sure about the value of chatbots and what they have to offer to your organization. But only just about 10% have already implemented a chatbot solution, be it a prototype or proof of concept or a real chatbot on your website or other means. This is not really surprising. This is this corresponds quite closely to what I've seen elsewhere in other polls or statistics. So let me jump into the whoops, we're at the start of the presentation here.
Okay, give it just 1 second here.
Yeah.
Just get the presentation back up and going. Sorry, flipping screens just a little bit. All right. There we go. Now we should be back up and live.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. Okay, so yeah, you're probably like me. You heard a lot about chatbots in 2016. It was a really a hype, to say the least, if not an hysteria about chatbots. And well, even if we've heard about chatbots or virtual assistants for quite a number of years now, even the first chatbot appeared in 1964, if I remember correctly. The hype really began to rise in 2016, and this is mainly because much of the large internet companies launched either some bot building platforms or cognitive services to develop chatbots, and they made some big announcements over the years, over the months. And at one of its conference, this Microsoft CEO in March 2016 said boldly that bots are the new apps and they are going to replace apps. Although I don't completely agree with him, I think there are really big advantages of apps over bots for some use cases. I do think that chatbots will bring a lot of value to your customers if they are implemented well. Just remember that even if Microsoft told us that they had 35,000 or so bots on their platform by the end of the year, my guess is that 90% or 98% of those bots are just test accounts, and maybe of the remaining 2%, only a few really met the expectations. So there has been a lot of disappointment in chatbots in the past year. So we have to bring something here that can really make chatbots benefit your organization. But I truly believe that we can build chatbots that are very effective, and especially if we bring those chatbots into your all omnichannel contact center strategy. So if on the next slide, I give a precise definition of what I understand as a chatbot. So for me, chatbots, there are three basic elements here that I want to point out. The first one is that chatbots in an omnichannel contact center strategy are essentially about automated services. So they are there not just to bring a conversation with the customer for psychotherapy or things like that, but they are really there to automate services that you could offer using other means. The other aspect here is that chatbots they have this conversational interface that is very important. So, and this interface is carried over a text-based channel. That is not to say that I would restrict chatbots to text-only conversations. You could have, if you go on the Facebook Messenger platform, you could have buttons, and you could have other kind of graphical user interface elements. But usually you will kind of restrict most of the things you do with the chatbots to a text-based interface. This is very interesting because this means your chatbot can be like a virtual agent in your contact center. It can communicate with your customer over Facebook Messenger at one point, and then if you are more comfortable using SMS, then you can continue the conversation using the SMS channel. So it's not devoted to a single channel. It can be used over all your different text-based channels, and I think this is a very powerful point here. On the next slide, I just give you a few examples of how chatbots can be implemented in a call center. For IT help desk, well, this can be just a way to automate most of the common problems that your customers will have. For example, the most common one is the password reset. So you can have a kind of prompt asking you how may I help you. So if you detect that the customer has a password reset problem, then you can just switch the conversation to the chatbot, and then the chatbot will simply automate the task and offer ways to reset the password or offer some other kinds of help. Another thing you could do is simply give answers from your knowledge base based on the query from the customer. So using what we call intent classification from using NLP techniques, the natural language processing techniques, then you can detect exactly what the customer is looking for, and based on that you can just retrieve documents from your knowledge base and present them in some way in the chat interface. For banking organizations, and well, you could certainly automate some common transactions using chatbots, like transferring funds or getting your account balance and things like that. A more powerful idea is to use a chatbot as a personal finance advisor. It's notorious that people are usually bad at managing their finances, so you could have a chatbot that simply warns you of your bill that you have to pay. They can offer you to save some money because you're putting too much money in your savings, in your checking account, and it could make much more interest in other accounts. So using some trends and looking at what you're doing, using, of course, some artificial intelligence techniques, then you can automate some of the tasks and be very proactive in the way your customer will manage his money. There's also this whole virtual assistant kind of thing where you can have reminder kind of application where you simply tell your chatbot to remind you of some events or things you have to do. So the chatbot, when the time comes for doing the thing, then it will simply send you notifications over your chat interface. It can be used for scheduling meetings by sending requests to other people, either in your organization or your friends, for scheduling a meeting or things like that. Another interesting idea we heard about lately is the idea that for a liquor store, for example, you could just have a chatbot that would make wine recommendations based on on your personal preferences that they have on you, on your budget, etc. So you just type a few things, and the chatbot would offer you some wine recommendations with ways to buy it online and get it delivered to you for your party or for your anniversary or something like that. On the next slide, I just wanted to show you, I hope it's clear, but on the left you have a conversation with a chatbot. It's a proof of concept for a utility company. I the conversation begins with the user typing hi, and then the chatbot greets the user with his first name and saying nice to see you back or things like that. And then it detects, the chatbot detects that a pre-authorized payment failed for one of the services the customer has with the company. So it then offers the customer to either check the prepayment options on the web, or to get a live agent to chat with immediately. So in this interface, you see that the customer type live agent, or simply click on a button to have the same exact effect, and then the agent start chatting with him instantaneously. So and on the right side, you see the agent desktop with the right subject being pre-authorized payment failed in this case, which shows you that you can have a conversation that is really focused on the problem at hand here. And of course, what you don't see in this interface is that you can also have the whole conversation that the customer had with the chatbot already logged in the interface. So the agent can instantaneously see the whole conversation, and it doesn't have to ask the same questions as start the conversation again. On the next slide, I just give you a number of differences between bots and mobile apps, and why I think some of the chatbots have very powerful is a very powerful channel over mobile apps. One of the key thing here is that Facebook has 1 billion, over 1 billion users, and most of these persons have a phone where they can text. And the other thing is that in the case of messaging application, you don't have any application to download. So this is very powerful, because most people now, they use their phone more to text than they use it to call other people. And they are in their messaging application more than they are on the social networks or on their phone talking to other people. So you are reaching people, when you have a chatbot, you are reaching people exactly where they spend most of their time online. Another interesting aspect is that, because of the asynchronous nature of chatbots, there's no perceived hold time. So you don't have someone on the line waiting for you or the converse. So you can spend your time multitasking, and even if there are some delays between the answers and the next request, then you can easily multitask and do other things at the same time. So the pauses in the conversation are very naturally handled by either the system or the customer. And there's no more, in this case, there's no more, session timeouts. Please log back again to continue what you were doing, because you can have chatbots that can have a conversation over a long period of time very transparently, and that is very interesting as a medium. The other thing that is quite powerful for your customers is that the dialogues are persistent. If you open your conversation on Facebook Messenger, for example, you have the history of all the interactions with the chatbot over say months, if you'd like. And on the next slide, I show you an example of that where this can be very interestingly used. So this is for a moving process, a moving journey for a utility company. So if the customer, say you want to buy a new house, you are moving to a new house, and you would like to move your internet service with you. So you would start a conversation with a chatbot for doing the address capture and scheduling the technician visit at your new house. And at the end of this conversation, well, the company can proactively offer promotions to the customer based on his profile and probably based on profiles from other people. So it can proactively make some promotions here. And then suppose I would like to reschedule the technician visit, then I can just continue the conversation in my chat, in my messaging application at some point later in time, and then just the day before the technician visit, the system can send me a reminder of the visit, and I will see this this notification in the same context as the rest of the whole conversation. So I don't lose context when I see this notification appear in my Facebook Messenger, for example. And when the technician completes his visit, it completes the connection of my service at my new house, then it will simply, maybe on his own mobile device, it will, just push a few buttons here and there, and then this will send me a notification that the process has been successfully completed in the backend. And again, this is all done in the same context as the rest of the conversation. So I never lose the conversation when I have this conversation with a chatbot. And I think this is a very powerful idea. So not only the agent at the end in a contact center will see the whole conversation, but the customer also sees the whole conversation all the time. Next slide. Okay, so I just described here what I think is a natural and good architecture for a chatbot system. So if your goal is to start small and just implement a few use cases, then you can simply start with an opening question, a very open-ended question, and using some natural language processing techniques, what we call intent classification, then you can simply capture the intent and start a more narrow and vertical service that is implemented using some directed dialogue, not necessarily using full-blown AI or full-blown natural language processing, but using some very directed dialogues with specific answers that the user can give instead of using the whole natural language. So this means you can have a much more efficient interface here with your customer. And if the open-ended question, you get an answer that doesn't fit any of the services that you provide, then you can simply send the conversation to a human agent, or simply even in the conversation with one of the vertical services, you can send the conversation to the agent if something goes wrong or something cannot be addressed by the chatbot. So you have always to keep some humans in the loop here to make sure that you have a very efficient conversation, an efficient user experience with your customer, and you don't want to annoy him during the course of the conversation. So this is very important to always keep humans in the loop. Finally, I just want to point out two things that I think are very important, and if there are two things that you should remember at the end of this talk, these are these 2 points. So the first is that developing chatbots requires skills that are very different from building websites or building mobile applications. They require some conversational user experience skills. And this is something that most speech companies have developed over, let's say, the last 20 years since we have these first IVR, speech-enabled IVR systems in the industry. So we've developed over the years lots of expertise and best practices to develop and design very efficient conversations with customers. Of course, we have some new challenges dealing with textual interface, but in terms of prompting and addressing, the kind of answers that are not expected by the system, handling, etc., then speech companies and people that have some speech experience are, I think, well equipped to do that more than anyone else. The other thing I would like to point out, and Tommy said it earlier, is that your chatbot must be tightly integrated into your omnichannel strategy. So a chatbot is not just another channel that you treat in silo. It's really something that can bind all your channels together and the conversation as a whole. So it needs to be personalized in a way that you have a truly personalized interaction with your customer, especially if you want to give some nice persona to your chatbot. It can be used very effectively to do some proactive notifications. Of course, it has to be really tightly integrated to your analytics and reporting platform. That goes without saying. And also, you have to use a very agile and small steps approach to designing chatbots. We would recommend doing some proof of concept and addressing some of the use cases that will give you the best return on investment. So you try to attack those use cases where most people have problem dealing with, or the things that can be automated very easily with a chatbot that could simply free your agents from doing some mundane stuff. And finally, of course, design with testing and tuning in mind, because you launch once, but you will keep adding stuff to your chatbot, and you will optimize it over time, over and over again. Thank you, and I will let Pamela do the concluding remarks. Pam? Are you on mute?
Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that you found today's sessions very informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the questions on the GoToWebinar piece. And we thank you very much. We will be reaching out to each and every one of you to share the slide deck and also to have further conversations with you to discuss your chatbot and omnichannel journeys. Thanks very much, and have a fantastic day.